13th of May 2015, the legal issues rear their head again. Francis Cummins wins his wrongful dismissal case in Leeds County Court after a 2-day hearing. Damages were to be agreed at a later date, but Bradford were ordered to pay £20,000 in costs at that stage. On the 13th of July 2015, the Bulls were ordered to pay £26,500 in damages to Cummins, plus a further £3,400 in costs, as well as the $20,000 already ordered. The club had a request to put the case on hold pending an application to the Court of Appeal, rejected. On the 3rd of October 2015, Bradford missed out on an immediate return to Super League. They lost the inaugural £1 million game to Wakefield at Bellevue. Then on the 30th of October, Mark Green claims that a winding up order had been incorrectly lodged against the club. Among lots of rumour and hearsay, we go all the way through then to April 2016. James Lowes resigned as coach, citing personal reasons. Matt Diskin was put in temporary charge reluctantly again. Rowan Smith, the son of Brian Smith, then signed a 3-year deal as head coach on the 5th of May. The 24th of July 2016 saw Bradford miss out on the qualifier spot after a defeat to Featherstone, meaning another year in the Championship was going to happen. On the 28th of July, Mark Green played down a further winding up petition stating an ongoing appeal with the HMRC in respect of a VAT settlement. Green was told the club must appear in the High Court. Then on the 1st of August, shortly after that announcement, Managing Director Steve Ferris announces his resignation from the club and retirement from Rugby League administration. On the 29th of August, Ferris was followed out of the door by Chief Executive Robbie Hunter-Paul, who also quit the club and resigning with immediate effect. On the 31st of October 2016, the club's battles with the HMRC come back into the headlines. They say that tens of thousands of pounds owed to the HMRC will be paid after they asked for the club to be wound up at a bankruptcy and companies court hearing in London. It was heard there was a disagreement over how much tax was owed, HMRC officials saying around £350,000 was owed, but the club claimed the debt was around £133,000 and that £100,000 had been paid. Judge Registrar Nicholas Briggs set a date of the 14th of November to review the case, and on the 14th of November, the club were actually placed in administration. Mark Green claiming HMRC forced this to happen to save the club's future and that the dispute over the tax bill was still ongoing. He announced his intention to regain the club from the administrators in the shortest practicable time frame. Gary Pettit and Gavin Bates of PBC Business Recovery and Insolvency were appointed as joint administrators a day later on the 15th of November 2016. This saw the third time the Bulls were placed in administration in a matter of years. On the 16th of November 2016, the RFL terminated the Bradford Bulls' official membership with the governing body. An RFL statement was released saying, "As is normal when a club enters administration, the RFL board has today terminated Bradford Bulls Northern Limited's membership of the RFL. The RFL is in discussion with the appointed administrators about their plans for the future of the club. The RFL board will then consider any proposals put forward by the administrators to secure the future of the club. Membership and the conditions of any membership of the RFL is then entirely at the discretion of the RFL board. As part of exercising its discretion, the RFL board will assess any individual it is proposed be involved in the ownership or management of the club to ensure they are a fit and proper person. In addition, as part of the conditions of any membership, the RFL board would then determine the appropriate sporting sanction, which could include a points deduction or possible relegation. This is clearly a distressing time for supporters, players and employees of Bradford Bulls. We aim to keep them updated of any progress as and when we can." On the 18th of November, Administrator Gary Pettit says he is excited about the interest in buying the club, with at least 6 different expressions of interest being received. On the 22nd of December 2016, an RFL statement is released stating that a decision on a formal offer from one interested consortium was expected soon, possibly by the following afternoon. The following afternoon came and went, but on the 29th of December we were told that a bid to buy the club, which had been supported by the RFL, had been rejected by the administrator. On the 31st of December, a statement confirmed this. Joint Minister Gary Pettit released a statement saying one bid was rejected, but discussions with another consortium were continuing and had reached an advanced level and were expected to conclude early the following week. Into the new year of 2017, however, and on the 3rd of January, the Bulls were placed into liquidation after the latest bid to buy the club was rejected. The RFL confirmed that if a new professional club in Bradford is formed in time, it can remain in the Championship for 2017, starting on minus 12 points. The RFL statement read, "The administrator of Bradford Bulls Northern Limited has confirmed that the club has ceased trading. While this is a terribly disappointing and sad, it is not entirely surprising development given the scale of debt incurred by the previous management of the club and the debilitating level of financial commitment already entered into for 2017. The RFL is aware of significant interest shown in the club by a number of potential bidders, and one bid for the company emerged shortly before Christmas. This was rejected by the administrator, and subsequently the further late interest shown to the administrator by another party was withdrawn yesterday evening. Accordingly, the RFL, through Rugby League Cares, intends to offer support to all staff and players who have had their employment terminated by the company ceasing to trade. The RFL is contacting all staff to advise them of the support it will provide. To clarify the next steps for all concerned, the RFL Independent Board has met to determine how the future of professional rugby league in Bradford can move forward in 2017. While a number of alternatives were considered, the board were most mindful of the planning already undertaken by all other clubs in the competition structure, the season tickets already purchased, and the players and staff who will now be seeking employment in and around the sport in 2017. Accordingly, the board has agreed that with the wider interest of the sport is best satisfied if it offers a place in the Kingston Press Championship to any new club in Bradford, and that such a club start the 2017 season on minus 12 points. Any interested parties should contact the RFL directly. The RFL believes that rugby league needs Bradford, and that Bradford deserves a strong and stable professional club, and will work with all interested parties to deliver that outcome." Right, Tom. So,
well, that was detailed, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, shall we just touch on maybe some of the more key parts of that whole period? We'll start and get your views on that, and then we'll roll into sort of the current situation. So, I suppose the first thing I've highlighted as key was the out of court settlement between Bradford and Leeds.
Yeah.
Do you feel that is the genesis of this problem, or do you feel that that's blamed because it's a way of almost putting it on someone else?
I'll go back and forth. Look, it didn't do the club any good at the time, but at the time, no one could have foreseen how things were going to go over the decade that was to come. And I honestly feel like there's been so many opportunities throughout the last 10 or 12 years to live within our means and absorb even a big loss like that within the club and start again in a structured and sensible way, that I don't necessarily blame it on. I'm not one of the Iestyn Harris people. I don't think that the whole Iestyn Harris situation is the seed that started this. I think it's a contributing factor in terms of the amount of money that came out of the club, and rightly so at the end of the day, but there's been other examples of money coming out of the club and the club being poorly run that have also contributed. So it's a part of it, but it's far from the genesis for me. And I'm certainly not. We were very happy to have Iestyn Harris in the team when we were winning. When we were winning competitions, and
you were
stuff.
Still getting 17,000 on the gate and that. Yeah,
exactly. So no, and I have absolutely no ill will towards Iestyn Harris, and I think the club itself has had the opportunity, and it was a tough decision to make in terms of, well, we perhaps need to retract our policies and stop spending as much money on playing stuff as we have been doing, and they chose not to. But it's certainly not the theory for me. No.
We jump forward then to the next, I suppose, the first winding up petition, because there's been many.
Yeah.
So that was in 2011, and that was former chairman Chris Casely. So, I won't ask you too much specifics about that part then, if you can't, but you will remember the RFL announcing the purchase of Odsal in January 2012.
Yes.
How much do you think the position with Odsal has almost undermined the club's position to move forward, ability to move forward, I suppose?
It was a short-term gain for a long-term loss, in my mind. At the time, the offer of what the RFL did was designed to help the club short-term, and
protect the assets of the sport,
and it protected the sport, and ultimately the RFL's interest is in the sport more broadly, and I think it did that. And there were a lot of money and advances were made, and obviously the RFL will have been given surety and reassurances that could be paid back by the club, and then things have got, that's obviously proven not to be the case, and it's proven to be a further millstone around the neck of Bradford Bulls as an entity.
Do you think the sale was the first real sign of serious systemic problems?
It was a serious step to take, and it was unique in the sport as well, as far as I know. So yeah, that indicates to you that the people in charge at the time, people like Peter Hood, were struggling to make ends meet and struggling to keep it as a going concern at that point. Yeah, absolutely.
We go through a spring of buckets being shaken and collections being made. And
what we've got to remember is that this is the season of the £50 season ticket as well.
Okay.
Which, in terms of as a business decision at the time, they'll have thought, well, if we can sell X amount of £50 season tickets, we'll make more money than if we sell X amount of £120 season tickets. But it was only sort of nominally more, or it would have relied on a lot of people taking that up.
A lot more people taking it up.
And the quality of what was on the pitch as well wasn't high enough. The product wasn't high enough to bring in that number of people. People wouldn't feel the value of that if they had they done this in 2006, for instance. They might have found that they had sufficient uptake in that. Yeah. But the product, and this is something that
was a declining product as
exactly.
Well,
this is it. This is something I'll come back to. What were being given on the field for a number of reasons was not of a sufficiently high standard for the expectations of your common or garden Bradford fan, so that contributed as well.
So through that period, then you get to the June of that year, and that's the first administration of 3.
Yep.
Do you remember the administration at the time? How concerned were you at the time?
Well, massively concerned, because it's a drastic step for any business to take, and when you see the staff of a club coming together like that and saying, we're in danger of being liquidated, that's of course that's serious, and you do worry about it. Fortunately, at the time, it felt like they were fairly quickly able to start resolving things and get a buyer in.
Yeah, so August, Omar Khan came in. That was all cleared up. There was no points deduction back then or anything like that, but the penalty was a financial one.
Yeah.
It was where the RFL half the central funding effectively, and the other clubs were happy and joyful to pick up that extra little bit of funding for themselves.
Yeah.
How do you think that making that agreement was the wrong thing to do? Do you think there should have been a more measured approach to trying to strike a deal rather than accepting whatever seemed to have been put on the table?
From what I understand, the whole conversation, and again, I'll preface it from what I understand, the whole conversation about the deal to reduce the funding and split it and give money to the other clubs. I'm not interested in where the money went, the other half of it. It could have gone to other clubs, it could have been pumped back in at grassroots for all I care. That's really not the issue. That deal was put to Omar Khan at the very last minute by the RFL, and basically he was told, take it or leave it, or we'll liquidate the club, and he wanted to be in a position to own Bradford Bulls, because from his point of view as a restaurateur and a business presence in Bradford, he saw an opportunity to sweat the asset that was Odsal, and that was a way of making money for him. So I think he felt pushed into a corner into making that decision, and was stuck between the devil and the deep blue sea, and it kind of forced his hand really, and he took a deal that didn't necessarily suit him or the club, but was the only deal on offer. Now, of course, there was no points deduction at that time, because, of course, a points deduction would have been a nominal punishment, because we wouldn't have been relegated at that point. So I can't sit here and go, yes, we'd have much preferred a 20-point deduction, because what the fuck? Now, there's got to be some punishment, and
Bradford already weren't making the playoffs every year at that stage.
Precisely. Well, it's been 4 or 5 years since we made the playoffs in 2012. So the governance of the RFL needs to have provision in there to punish clubs that do this. And I know the argument is, well, why punish a club that's losing money and is already struggling to make ends meet? Well, frankly, there has to be some kind of punishment, because otherwise clubs will just run themselves into the ground over and over and over and over again and expect an RFL bailout, and that isn't good for the game. There needs to be discouragement for that. So